Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're having a brilliant day. So the second episode of What If just landed and boy was it epic. I mean, it truly did live up to everything that What If is all about, in terms of one small change can have an unbelievable impact on so many different things and on so many different characters, and this one truly did change the whole universe itself, which was just so mind-blowing, and I'm going to be breaking it all down for you right now. So the big change this time around was that Yondu didn't go to find Peter Quill himself, and instead he asked Kraglin and Taserface to find him, and due to the vibranium energy that was coming from this spear in Wakanda, they picked up T'Challa instead, which then spiraled a whole new timeline in which T'Challa became the Star-Lord instead of Peter Quill. Now this has massive ramifications on so many things. For example, T'Challa never goes and becomes the Black Panther, Yondu claims that Wakanda got destroyed, Korath leaves Ronan the Accuser and instead joins the Ravengers. Instead, Nebula doesn't go down the dark path, and biggest of all, Thanos doesn't go on to become the Mad Titan, hell-bent on wiping out half of the entire universe. So changing one small little thing literally did change everything. Now this episode has a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy energy, but the heart of the Black Panther, as T'Challa literally is able to touch the hearts of so many different characters and is now renowned across the entire universe as being this incredible person that helps everyone out, and is a true interesting dichotomy to the Black Panther movies, where they kept all of their resources for their own community and generally just keep themselves to themselves. Whereas here you can see that he's able to transform the whole lives of people in the entire universe, so you can actually see where Killmonger was coming from in terms of his perspective in the first Black Panther movie. So I thought that the opening sequence to this episode was actually really funny in terms of how it mirrored the opening of Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of Star-Lord searching for the orb, and in the main timeline Korath doesn't know who Star-Lord is, whereas in this timeline T'Challa is a bit of a legend and Korath was having such an amusing battle with him, which did have bits of intensity in there, but it was also just incredibly light-hearted in terms of how gracefully T'Challa was able to defend himself and just how amusing the whole battle sequence was in general. I also thought it was really interesting how T'Challa and the audience believed that Wakanda got destroyed based upon the fact that T'Challa wasn't there to protect it. Yondu does do some really questionable things in the live action movie, so it wasn't totally out of his character to lie like this, even though it was such a dramatic thing that he was doing in terms of literally kidnapping T'Challa and lying to him about his entire hometown being destroyed. Now I also thought that it was really creative how they had the Nebula character triple crossing everyone in terms of encouraging the Ravagers to go to nowhere to find the embers of Genesis and restore planets, a motivation that she knew that T'Challa wouldn't be able to say no to, and was one that would be able to pay off her debts to the Collector, as she was able to give up the entire Ravager group to him. But then when you least expect it, she returns to the side of the Ravagers and becomes the hero that she lately has also become in the live action movies. I thought that the Collector's collection was insanely epic, and it was really great actually having him being the big bad of this episode now that Thanos is on the good guys team, which I just thought was so mind-blowing, especially considering what he's done during the entire Infinity Saga. Really goes to show that nobody is beyond help, and the fact that T'Challa was able to avoid him causing literal mass genocide was just so powerful. I also thought it was really hilarious how he chose to fight with Hela's weapons, which is just something that you would never think he would be able to acquire from the goddess of death herself, surely. I also loved how at the end of this episode they were literally able to cage the cager, and it just perfectly echoed Karma, as the Collector did mention this at the start and at the end of this episode. I also really like the scenes of Nebula saving Thanos. She always did have a deep love for him and a sense of wanting his approval, whether she's a good person or a bad person. Also, I really like the scenes where they were running across all of the plants at the end, as it really did remind me of when Iceman from the X-Men series would create ice paths for him and for others to skate or even drive on, which I thought was a really interesting mirroring in this episode. I also thought it was incredible how at the end of this episode also, we get to see T'Challa and the rest of the Ravengers, including Thanos, going back home to Wakanda and seeing T'Challa interacting with his father again, and seeing those hilarious funny remarks taking place between the Wakandans and the Ravengers, and just seeing all of the two families uniting and all of the different communities interacting as well was really, really heartwarming. Now, then we have the end credit scene, which, wow, was just so beyond epic, as this whole entire time we've been focusing on T'Challa, but what actually happened to the Peter Quill character, son of a Celestial? Well, Ego has now found him, and now that he doesn't have Yondu or the Guardians of the Galaxy to take him down the good path and collectively prevent Ego and Quill from taking over the entire universe, what is he going to do? I mean, the Watcher did tease that this is going to cause the end of the world, which I thought was really, really brilliant, as thus far, what we've been seeing by this what if change has all been incredibly positive, but there is always a flip side to getting this much positivity, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing this in another future episode when we return to this timeline. So it has literally been so great hearing and seeing the late Chadwick Boseman back in the legendary role of T'Challa. He just brings so much warmth, so much joy, so much positive energy to the role and to the character, and literally does light up a room, quite literally and metaphorically, and it's just no mere coincidence that he was able to talk Thanos out of destroying half of the entire universe. Now, I did think it was a little bit of an unbelievable stretch personally, and I do wish they would have dived into this storyline a little bit more in terms of T'Challa being able to turn Thanos into a good character, as it was a little bit comic relief at points having Thanos being part of the Ravengers team and behaving a little bit like an Avenger, but either way it did really show how much of a noble character T'Challa is. I mean, speaking of Thanos, as he didn't destroy Drax's planet, we get to see Drax being a bit of a happy and jokey bartender character, and you wouldn't have known or thought that Dave Bautista didn't return to voice his part, as they've got such great stand-in actors to voice the characters of these well-known players. Now, I did also really like all of the different family dramas that were really prevalent across this episode. For example, T'Challa being inserted into multiple different family scenarios and having multiple different father figures and people that he can call his family. Also, the Nebula Thanos being adopted children line really did mirror Loki and Thor, always referring to the other one as having adopted brothers, and the tease about what's to come with the Peter Quill relationship with his father Ego. I also love seeing the Black Order again, and this time under the leadership of the Collector instead of Thanos, and you could still just see how life-threatening and formidable they are. I mean, two of them even fighting Thanos at the end of this episode was just such a flip on the main timeline. Now, I also thought that Karen Gillan was just so great as the Nebula character. She was just so instantly recognizable from a voice acting point of view, and just like they were with T'Challa and with Yondu, she really did bring so much life to this character as well. That being said, I did also like how they changed her appearance, as she wouldn't have had Thanos torturing her for so many years. However, she did still have that edge and selfishness to her, which is obviously what this character has as a character trait, and I really did love all of the double crossing and the triple crossing in this episode. Now, the Collector was honestly so brilliant here. Benicio del Toro did such a good job in re-bringing this character to life, and I would even go as far as to say he was better here than he was in the live action movies, as he was super dark and he didn't have Thanos and other characters preventing him from acquiring all of this loot from across the entire universe, including Gorg's arm and the Avengers' weapons such as Cap's shield and Thor's hammer. I did think it was also really poetic how he was caged at the end of this episode and everyone that he had trapped were finally free. And finally, I thought that Howard the Duck was used really, really well here. Long enough to be impactful and short enough to not be too distracting from a novelty point of view, and so from a character's point of view overall, this episode was actually really, really impressive. So I really enjoyed this episode. I mean, it had so many shocking changes to the timeline and really lent a lot into the Guardians of the Galaxy world, while also having a bit of a true hint and flavour of the Black Panther in there as well. So it really did channel exactly what the whole What If show is all about, in terms of one small thing being different, having such cataclysmic impacts on so many different things and so many different characters. I also really liked how it mirrored themes of Robin Hood and Indiana Jones and mixed it with class and elegance, and was both really big and really small in scale as well. And they also did manage to pack in so much storytelling in just 30 minutes. Wow, super impressive. Also, the animation style is really impactful now. I mean, it did take a little while to get used to last week in the first episode, but actually now it's looking super spectacular. So those are all of my thoughts on the second episode of What If. Now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of the episode? Please let me know in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye everyone.